Hi, this is Maryland Comptroller Peter Francho. I may not listen to every podcast out there, but I do listen to the Maryland Crabs.
Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
It's the Maryland Crabs with a very special guest.
Wait, is this the Maryland Crabs podcast, or I'm looking at a stuffed animal? Is this the Maryland Dads podcast?
With Scott MacMullan.
Scott MacMullan.
Oh,
yay.
It's I say Mac or he'll get all feisty.
I'm the Podfather.
I like that. I like that. We called you the godfather of podcasting in town, but I like the Podfather.
The Podfather.
I saw that on your license plate as you rolled in. And you actually brought pizza. This is the first guest ever to bring pizza.
Yeah.
I know. Well, when he gets elected, he can give us a coin.
Well, you're always talking about Roccos pizza, Tim, so
It's
I figure
fine.
you eat it every day.
I don't have a problem. I'm a big pizza guy, and I don't eat it. I eat pizza a lot. But Roccos is something, and I don't have a vendetta against them. It's just not my favorite in town. So, as a matter of fact, I put it in my least favorite, but I don't hate it. But that's only because the town is so
okay,
small.
maybe I missed that. Okay,
No, I like it.
Then what is your favorite in town?
Yeah,
I misunderstood that too.
Yeah, I thought Roccos was your favorite.
Well, when I said no, I mean Roccos is fine. I like Roccos actually.
You're kind of a health nut, like a closet health nut.
No,
though.
not really.
Really? I thought Kathy keeps you fit.
No.
No. Okay.
No. She works out a lot.
Okay.
She and my daughter do kickboxing.
Okay.
I do not. I listen to them talk about it, but I don't.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me over.
Yeah, my shape is round.
Me too. I'm with you, John.
You walk you get up at the crack of dawn and you walk like 9 miles.
6, but yeah.
Do you really? 6 miles?
That's impressive.
In a row?
6 in the morning for the most part. Try to. So I went over and saw Jack Ellis at Post Haste this morning.
Jack's
and
the best.
Eric Evans from this morning. It was like went to Mr. Green.
Oh, yeah.
Jack.
Mr.
Eric,
Green, he does
my morning was shot.
He does the car repair down on Chinkapin.
But yeah, no, we've been doing the podcast for a year plus now, right? About a year and a half, actually.
More than a year and a half. Because we started in August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So yeah,
about a year and a half. And you had been pestering me for years to start one, and we just never did.
Uh-huh.
And then this guy here, Scott MacMullan, who is a candidate for District 6 for County Council, started a podcast. And he's got the Annapolis podcast, which went to uncover just the stories of Annapolis from past, present, and future. I can't remember what your intro is, but you've had some fascinating people on. You've had some, including me.
I was on twice. That was your first two.
But you've had some fascinating people on, and it's been really interesting to find out, uncover some of the things. I likened it very early on. I likened it to the Annapolis Sound, which was
I forgot about those guys.
Website, the bunch of St. Johnnies that came in, and they had one piece where it was like some 6 degrees of whatever, and they would interview like the mailman on Maryland Avenue.
Yeah.
And it was really very cool just to find out what brought them to Annapolis, what they like about it, what they do, and everything else. And you do a really good job. And probably one of my favorite podcasts that I don't really say anything. I mean, I listen to a bunch. Is the Ralph Crosby.
Oh, sure, that was a great one,
which was phenomenal,
based on his book, Memoirs of a
Main Street Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy that. He'd kill me if he hears it. I don't know whether he listens, but I mean, he's pretty close to older than dirt.
Nice.
He's old. I mean, he's been here forever, and he's just seen the changes. And to see how Annapolis is, it's just pretty. That was a great episode. Good job on that. You started a video log. It didn't go anywhere. You sort of stopped on that.
It's just a lot of work.
No kidding.
It's a lot of work to do these podcasts and do that sort of thing.
I was bringing that down for someone
and then
today.
You got to find something to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
I was breaking that down for someone today. They were asking about, because they were starting a podcast. It was some business, and they said, well, how long does it take? I said, well, I mean, John does all the booking and all the technical stuff. Yeah. And I said that, you got to get there. You got to set up. You do the interview.
I'm going into the pizza.
Yeah.
Do it.
And then if we're doing an hour-long podcast, it takes me about 3 hours to edit it, at least. And then John takes all the time. He's got to upload it and make sure it goes to all the right places. So it is a lot. It's a ton.
Well, I did it. It's been great to talk to so many different people in Annapolis. I call it coffee on steroids because it's a way for me. I'm just, it was a regular guy. And I say, well, you want to sit down and have an interview with me on the Annapolis
podcast. You're the fastest eater anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, John,
you just inhaled that slice.
I'm ready to get a word in it.
Jesus
One
Christ.
second. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. It's a good way to reach out to the community. And it's actually one of the reasons, because of the podcast, getting to talk to a lot of people, one of the reasons why I'm running for county council. So.
Okay, that was a question that I had.
You just dropped that in casually.
First, the council or the podcast? Was the podcast developed specifically to look into a political run? Or
no, definitely not. Definitely not. I did start following Chris Trumbauer, who's a current councilman. In law school, I was working for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation.
He's a hack. I don't like him.
That's contrary to what you said when you interviewed him. So.
Yeah, we kiss everyone.
Everybody.
Nice jacket, by the way.
Yeah, I think this is a Sam's Club special.
Yeah, I was kissing your ass. I don't like it.
And I was there, and I wrote a law review article on the Chesapeake Bay. And I quoted this. This was 2008. I quoted this young riverkeeper named Chris Trumbauer, and I've kind of followed his career since then. Have a lot of respect for him. We don't align on everything, but I really want to build.
Dude too.
He is a very smart person. He's a scientist.
I'm not just saying that. I'm saying when we sit down and talk to him, I'm very self-conscious because I know that if I say something stupid, he won't. He's tactful enough. He's not going to bring it up. But
he's a very intelligent cat for sure. He's cat. Yeah, cat. Yeah, his cat. Yeah, he works well with others. I think he's really reached across the aisle really well when it comes to the county council. So I would love to, be able to do that too, because you need, at the end of the day, you need to get some legislation passed.
Yeah, well, we were talking about him because he was a environmentalist, and that was the cornerstone of his campaign. We asked him, we said, how hard is it when you come in that you're seen as a one-trick pony? Because you have other candidates that were kind of seen. Jared Lippman was certainly seen as an environmentalist, and
Rob Savage. We're in Ward 7 right now.
Yeah, so but these are guys that you see when they come in that's their message. But that's what Chris said. Once you're there though, you got to bring more to the table, and you got to.
Oh, absolutely.
And these are guys that they're all very exacting, so you see that they went right to the budget. But that's your foray in. That's going to be what they keep talking with Trump. That's your core. That's your base rather. So once you have your base established, but you got to expand beyond that. It's funny. I was thinking about this on the ride over. Just how many of the people that we all know, because we all know the same people, because this town is the size of this room. How many transients that live here? Not transients, but how many people who are from out of the area who settle here and don't leave? I mean, I grew up in Bethesda, which when I grew up was kind of an Irish Catholic neighborhood and huge Jewish base. But now it's people from all over the country because they work for government or lobbyists or corporate headquarters and what have you. But Annapolis is like that too. I mean, if you think about it, how many people do you know who are really from Annapolis? In the people we know. A lot of them from
I know
out of the area.
There's a good core of because it's such a, and I was never one of those people to say, oh, I'm going to come back to sort of my hometown and live, work, and and play here. But Annapolis is special. It's got there's a great historic aspect, but it's got that town feel. Even though it's been growing, it still has that kind of town feel to it. So I think that's special. You go down West Street, you go down Main Street, you're at Pitt Moyer Rec Center, you bump into people and I think that's pretty neat. You go to Giant right up the street here, go to Roccos Pizza. I saw someone in there, and you meet someone So sometimes that could be bad because you can't let loose.
You can't get away with anything.
You can't get away with anything. There's no dancing on top of bars for me in here in Annapolis, but
I knew some guy who was stepping out on his wife and he did it in town. That was ridiculous.
Yeah,
and he had the nerve to be surprised when he was spotted.
I've caught Herb MacMullan doing karaoke at the Evtide, and I've heard Pete Smith doing karaoke over at Mike's.
Well, I know I was there when Pete Smith. One of the times Pete was singing karaoke, and I was singing karaoke too.
And Pete can sing karaoke.
Yeah, he can. And I'm sort of there joking around, and I do some of the the talking songs there, and just because I don't really have a voice, and it's fun.
Talking songs,
like
rap?
More rap or country or something like that. Yeah. And they could be hard. So I thought, so I've embarrassed myself. I've done okay. But Pete Smith gets up there, and it's amazing what he can do with those
he's done
those
the
pipes.
National anthem at different events and whatnot. He's got a great voice, actually.
Yeah.
There's people who take it serious.
And he's got huge guns on.
Yeah, he might.
That you don't want to say anything to him. Even if he sucked, you would say he's great.
I don't think he's eaten much Roccos pizza here. He's pretty in shape for sure.
Yeah, he's a Marine.
He's a great guy. I really like his demeanor and respect.
What's the thing too when you look at people who run for office, it comes from, you end up knowing the people who are running, and you know everything about them, when they get out there. So, I mean, it's not like a persona you have to develop. I was thinking about this, like, remember when Clinton said he didn't inhale, the whole thing with weed, that he tried it, but he didn't inhale? I actually believed him, because I've grown up with people like that you knew in college they were going to run for office, because they were poli-sci majors or whatever, but they wanted to be friends there, wouldn't be liked, so they were the ones that,
you got to hang out with
you would hang out with them, and they would pretend, they would, because they knew that anything they did in college was going to come back to haunt them. But there's some people who are just born to run for office.
Yeah, but I don't think I was born to run for office.
I don't mean they were meant to it. They were meant for it, but they decided early on that they were going to do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, Dewan's like that.
When did you get into it? When did you decide you wanted to? I mean, get this political.
Well, I think you were following. Yeah, we'll get Tim some of this.
Here, have some pizza, Tim.
When was it? A year or two ago? I mean, it was kind of a gradual thing, but again, it was meeting with different people in the podcast. And of course, you all know one of the questions I always ask on the Annapolis podcast: if you were mayor for a day,
what would you do?
What would you do? What could you get done? And from hearing those answers, that kind of definitely facilitated
now you know what the problems are.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just cribbed all their answers for when you ran?
Exactly. Well, I'm not running for mayor. And I think definitely mayor and county executive spots are different than representative spots. It's more mayoral and county executive. That's more of a management position. When you're running for county council or alderman, that's a representative position. So it's a little different for sure. So sometimes I think in politics, and this is me just kind of going off on a little tangent here, is you think, oh, you're county council, so the next step is county executive. I don't think that's always should be the case.
There's never been a county executive that has come from the county council, and there has never been a mayor of Annapolis that has gone on to higher elected office.
Yeah, you said that the last episode.
There's not a linear progression when it comes to local elections. I mean, you see people move about a little bit, but I mean, it's not. They kind of come and go.
I mean, we've got Kathy Vitale. I mean, she went from county council over to the House of Delegates, and now she's a judge.
Well, here's my question.
She got that 15-year gig, making the big bucks.
Well, my question to you, John, is: are you ever going to run?
Nope.
For anything?
Nope.
Really? Did you ever think about running for something? Okay.
Nope. I grew up around politics. I've seen what it does. And
really? How do you grow up?
I just don't like the. I mean, I would much prefer a. It always gets dirty. It always gets dirty, and I just that's just not my style.
No, it's definitely. I mean, I'm a new candidate. That's definitely. The reality of politics, and it's.
I've been offered plenty of money for dirt on you.
Sure. No, I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And certainly here in Annapolis, I mean, I see how phony politics I think is. I mean, once you're out of office, whether you leave or...
You don't like it how candidates are always showing up to meetings, and then when they lose or move on, they're not there anymore. Is that
that's one of the things. I mean, you come out, oh, I love Annapolis. I've loved Annapolis forever, and I've always been involved. I'm like, well, nobody knows who you are until you started to run. And then once you lost,
there's a few of those dark horses that you're like, I don't, this is a small town. I've never heard of you before, and all of a sudden,
so in that so the only people who can run are like Cal Ripken, the people that know, that sort of thing.
Nah, he's an interloper.
No, but I think you're right. I mean, if I saw people like people who've been involved, like if I saw like Janet Norman or Jessica Packler, or these are people who've been involved in grassroots organizations or education, all those meetings. If I saw them run, that would make sense to me.
Well, what about Bob? That ran as a Republican, lost to Panelides in the primary.
Bob that ran.
I can't remember what his name. First name was Bob.
Bob. Okay.
But he was, all about it, and he was going to be, we don't know where he is. What about, the only time we heard from Doug Burkhart, who ran against Joe Budge, was when he came to. was when he funded the attack ad against Gavin.
Sure. Didn't he run for county council as well?
He did at one point.
Yeah.
So I mean, these people come and go, and typically they, depending on who they know and how they got into the race, they get favors called in and hidden, and I just don't like that. I mean, I know there was one guy I know who I consider a friend that was coerced to run for a delegate seat, got his ass handed to him. But he somewhat gave up a job to do it and was protected. He was given a job deep in the DNR and was working there for many, many years until a succeeding governor was able to rout him out and say, okay, well, what do you do?
Here's a question. We always talk about candidates that have already filed or whatever, about to file. What about people you think you're just talking about people that would be good candidates that necessarily won't run, that are sort of out there in the community activists that would be good at city council, county council, that sort of thing.
Well, those people don't run for a myriad reasons. First of all, because I know one person who would run and they would win handily without raising much money, and they said it was a financial issue for them, that they had something that they didn't want to disclose. But I think that there's a lot of reasons that there's good people who would run but made mistakes in the past, or they look at all the dirt being dug up saying, I don't need that. I'm just trying to do something good. I don't need my life upended because someone wants to dig up any kind of dirt.
Right.
A nasty divorce, a bankruptcy.
Kicking that cat behind the shed.
Yes, I mean, but look, if you look at the founding fathers, it was seen as dishonorable to nominate yourself. Washington, Jefferson, you had to be cajoled into running. Like you basically they'd say, Mr. Washington, you'd be phenomenal as our president. You go, oh no, I'm not worthy. I couldn't possibly. And they had to be cajoled into it, and it was part of a dance that you did.
It was an uprising to bring you into it. I mean, you had people begging you to run for it.
Right.
I mean, you didn't have people begging you to run for office.
But you're right. I mean, there's some people that I said that would be fantastic. But then you also get discouraged by the red tape and the bureaucracy. Because if you think about like the people who run for what I think are the right reasons, and it's no secret that we're friends with Jared, and I think Jared ran for the right reasons, and I was a little nervous with him going into it that he'd come out the other side a little dirty, and he didn't. No. He went in for the right reason. He went in to serve.
Well, he came close because you said Fred Payon said it at the Steve Shoe's thing. He says, "Yeah, Jared's turned quite into the politician."
Yeah, but I think that was because Jared understood that you had to negotiate, you had to make deals to get legislation done. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that compromise and deal making is part
I hope Jared. I had lunch with Jared. I think it was last week or maybe it was earlier this week at Eastport Kitchen, which actually I had a good experience there. It was good. We had a good salad.
Yeah, we just had a bad run. I think I don't know.
You all should try it out again. I think it was good.
Well, I want to support locals, so I mean I'll try it again.
There's a lot of people in there. Ross Arnett was in there at the time. It was Debbie Goslin was in there at the same time. Dick Franyo, Kyle Gross of APS was in there. So there's a lot of people kind of become a little bit of a community hub over there, I think, in Eastport. But I was talking to Jared, and I said, I think I really admired some of his legislation that he got through, but I also admired how he, in a way, groomed and really brought along Mark Rodriguez. And the fact that, because I feel like a lot of times politicians in that scenario would try to, just in their minds, they would overshadow Mark, or he would try to be the center of attention or something like that. But Jared kind of stepped away a lot of times and let Mark really develop into becoming alderman. I think that I kind of admired that and how he did that.
Well, I think it goes again to the kind of people who run is that there is a lot of ego involved, and there's nothing wrong with that. Ego can be a good thing to a certain extent.
We've got to have it.
Right, and I'm not saying that everyone who runs has ego, but a lot of people who do run, it's not to serve the public and maybe to feather their own nest, but a lot of it is because it is ego. And I think you get frustrated when you see someone that you think is going to make a difference, and they get in there and they really don't, because they're constrained by whatever processes or whatever political will there is. I mean,
it's tough.
Look at national thing. Yeah. Agree or disagree with Trump. He made a promise to his base that for the large part he's been unable to keep, and again, agree or disagree with him.
Not for lack of trying, though.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
That's going to endear him to his base. Hey, I tried that. I mean, O'Malley did that too here in Maryland. I mean, with the whole gay marriage.
To a point that if you make
the whole gay marriage,
but if you make promises and you can't, you almost want to be blocked, because at that point you can say I did try, and you become a folk hero. Go, well, there's nothing he can do because you have a Democratic.
Well, that's exactly what O'Malley did with the gay marriage. The first time it came around. Legalizing gay marriage in Maryland. The first time it came around, he had to appeal to his conservative base, and he did. He said, "No, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that." And then the next time it came around, I was like, "Oh, well, hey, I tried." But
that's the reality behind it too. Let's say that you go in with the purest reasons. Let's say you say, "Look, I'm looking at what's happening. I'm really annoyed by the way the county / cities / countries are working right now. I want to try and make a difference. I certainly can't do any worse than anyone else." So you run for the right reasons. But once you get there, let's say that you get elected, you have to then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute. Most of what I'm doing means I have to have fundraisers. I forgot about raising the money. So
it's a lot of work.
Right. Jeez. That means, but then you have to go to everyone else's fundraisers, and you're expected to write checks. And
all right, let me ask you a question here. And this thing that frustrates me, you look at these campaign finance reports, and
I know you say
it's just a damn shell game. It's like, okay, I look at candidate A, and who's donated him? Well, candidate B, C, D, E, and F. And who donated candidate B? Oh, well, that was candidate A, C.
Yeah, just everyone keep your own money, and that way you don't have to have all these events.
I mean, it's funny. You sit there and you look. I mean, at your finance report or anybody's, it's like, okay, well, I gave $50 to John Astle. Oh, look, he gave me a check for $50.
But again, going to a national level again, Trump did all this with a fraction of Hillary Clinton's money. Now, granted, you would say that the press coverage he got was free.
Invaluable, sure.
Yeah. But you could do that. We talked about years ago saying, could you run a local campaign without raising ridiculous amounts of money?
I think it's important to, like, when we're out here campaigning, that whatever you say or want to do, you have to have, at least on the county council level, 4 votes. So you could say, oh, I'm going to do this, but what can you really, you can be a leader and speak up about certain issues, but to get some stuff passed, you have to have 4 votes. So I think that's really important in the campaign as well as when you're on the county council.
Yeah, but that's the reality, is that I think most people run and they have this grand idea of what they're going to do. They say, I'm going to be different than anyone else. I'm going to get in there. I'm not going to be beholden to anybody. And then I think reality does hit, because this game goes so deep. You can't break the cycle. You talk to any legislator, any congressman or senator, and they spend something like 70-80% of their time fundraising. Like, they go in and they have to go across the street to those telephone banks, and they have to sit there for hours a day.
On the federal level, I mean, you've got congressmen running every 2 years. I mean, they barely get settled into their desk, and they've got to get up and start to campaign again for the next election.
And someone would argue too, because you have those people who say that I'm all for term limits. That's why I'm only going to serve one term. And what they find out is that by the time their term's up, that they couldn't get anything done because they just learned the lay of the land. They just developed relationships with other legislators. And,
do you think there should be term limits in the city?
Absolutely.
I do, yeah.
For where do you think it's 2, 3, 4?
Terms?
Terms, yeah.
Yeah, I think 2 terms would be acceptable for councils, if you will. I think as well as take it all the way up to the federal government. And I think that maybe 3 terms for an executive, whether it be county executive or mayor or president.
Really? So you think the county executive and the mayor should have another term, but you think that
perhaps? I mean, I think there's a lot of issues that come up to within a city or any kind of a municipality, if you will, that can't be solved within 4 years or 8 years.
Should the term be 5 years instead of 4?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, Crystal Spring is one. I mean, the Senate. The U.S. Congress has a split terms. I mean, the Senate has 6-year terms and the House has 2. But I think that you just get to the point after 4 years that you're comfortable in knowing. I mean, you're working with the council, you're working with your constituents, you can start to move stuff. And that next 4 years, I don't know that it's necessarily enough to actually get it accomplished. Look at Josh Cohen. Granted, he only had 4 years, but he had and actually I believe it started with Ellen, but the redevelopment of the city dock with the bulkhead. And Mike Panelides turned around and he just took total credit for that. Coming into that.
Yeah, I think, but everyone...
You look at the city dock master plan that was started back under Ellen, and that was shelved under Panelides, and now maybe making a resurrection under Mayor Buckley, but...
And a lot of people think Trump is taking credit for the economy when it was Obama, right?
Yeah, but all presidents... Right. I mean, I think all presidents do that when they first come in, is that, you look at... because I think Republicans are trying to pin the recession on Obama, and you go, well, wait a minute.
That's another bug that I've got. I mean, okay, we all know what the situation, whatever the situation was, we know what it was in, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether it was indifferent. I ran for this office. I won this office. It's me. I own it. And I hated that when you sat there. I mean, Josh, when he said, I inherited a fiscal train wreck. Well, you should have known what the hell you were inheriting.
No, but I agree. But I think you have to set those parameters because I don't have a lot of faith in the electorate. I just don't. I don't think people are particularly bright as a group. I don't trust them as voters. And I think sometimes if you're coming in, you do have to set that parameter right. Not to assign blame, but just to go, look, I know it's a wreck, but I'm going to fix that. If Trump had come in, because Trump's right about North Korea. He goes, I inherited an absolute mess with North Korea, and now I've got to mop it up. Basically, he's laying the parameters down that if anything happens with North Korea, they can't point fingers and say, like, under Trump, the North Koreans invaded or they launched nukes or whatever. So he's I hate to say this, he's relatively bright in what he's doing right now, and he's laying down the parameters. But every administration is just a continuation, for better or for worse, of the administration before them. You can't pin 9/11 on George W. I mean, that was brewing for a long time.
You can't. I mean, you can't. But, pin a lot on everybody. I mean, you just got to deal with it. You've been dealt a hand of cards. You signed up to get the hand.
But at some point, you own it.
Sure, you do.
And that's, like, for example, I keep going national because it's easier to understand as far as the examples. But Obamacare is right now that is owned by Trump. He could have fixed it. The Republicans could have fixed it, and they didn't. Therefore, now they own that. Right. So they can't point a finger.
I also think that I think in not defending Trump because I really don't like him, but I don't think he's been overly. Oh, this is Obama's fault. I think he said I've disagreed with what Obama has done. Has he? Okay.
Yeah, he just But I mean, he's the bombastic characteristics. Whatever. I just
pop it in the mic. Make sure so we know you're drinking.
Yeah, we are.
We're gonna get the future county councilman drunk and get the secrets out. Have you ever kicked a cat?
No, I've never kicked a cat. No.
Did you hear the story about the chick in BWI that had to flush her hamster?
Was that BWI?
Yeah.
Is there emotional support hamster?
Yeah, it was emotional support hamster.
Good.
She had to...
I'm so sick of that whole emotional support. My daughter called someone out on that when we were coming back from Ireland or going to Ireland a couple years ago, and someone had one of those stupid vests that they get through the internet, and but the dog was peeing in the middle of the baggage claim. My daughter went up and said, that's not a real support animal. And the woman was real taken aback.
My daughter called one out in Walmart. The person was walking through with a dog with one, and they're like, that's a Home Depot vest. It's like that's not. But we know somebody that has an emotional support animal. $79.99 on the internet gets it, and then you can take Fluffy with you on the plane. And everybody's so scared to say no because
you can ask under the ADA. You can say, "What is your dog trained to do?" You know, and if they're not, they say, "Well, it's my emotionally supported animal." Well, what is it trained to do? They have to be trained. Those are highly trained animals, not your stupid Bianchon Francais.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
On the BWI, I think it was Spirit Airlines, and apparently the girl says that they said, "Well, at this point, you can either not take your flight, let the hamster go free,
right,
or flush it." And she said she struggled with her decision, and she realized that she couldn't let him go free and be freezing and scared and run over by a car, so she made the ultimate decision to flush it. And I'm thinking, okay, so there's all sorts of people making all sorts of bad decisions here.
Sure.
But you know what? I really didn't. Like, I love animals just like everyone else does. I really didn't flinch at that one. Not even been like a puppy or something like that, sure, but it's
the
just
hamster.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have flinched at that.
Yeah,
I mean, goldfish,
bit,
goldfish or a guppy. You know, my beta fish.
Oh,
yeah, no, okay.
No, it's like a rat, except it's cuter.
PETA's gonna call.
Oh, it's you're cruel. You probably kick puppies and kittens.
My campaign manager is Chris Jimenez. He works at the SPCA, so he'd be tisking you all.
No, I'm not happy she did it, but I really didn't upset me that much.
So you've been campaigning for what? Almost 2 years now.
We were saying that you call it. You're like, oh, he's going to be 2 years ahead of time. He's been campaigning. I had my kickoff event last June. So the primary is June. So it was a year ahead. My kickoff event was June, and the primaries
was that the one that you canceled because the rec?
Yeah. So it was at Pitmore Rec Center, and it was about 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were getting ready for this kickoff event, and this news came in that I think it was 97 was backed up, and all of Annapolis was backed up. You'd take 30 minutes to get a mile in Annapolis or half a mile, and so we decided to cancel the kickoff event, and we had it a month later, like a fundraiser / kickoff. But that just shows you how Annapolis Neck Peninsula shuts down because of traffic problems. So one of these issues. I mean, we're talking about Crownsville. I know you were talking about Crownsville issue with Stuart Pittman. Of course, Crystal Springs is an issue here in the city. We really have to think about things before we go and move forward with these massive developments.
No, we don't. Just build the damn things. Fire up the bulldozers.
You really want to build this thing. I played lacrosse. I played lacrosse at Villanova. I played lacrosse in high school, and I love lacrosse. But when I was up there door knocking and listening to the residents up there, they didn't. Actually, one time I was going up there to door knock, and I had to turn around. There's so much traffic. It was a weekend of Renaissance Festival. There was a craft fair going on. Sure. And I think there was a Navy football game. And I had to turn around. I couldn't go.
I mean, Renfest comes in and they all hate it.
Yeah.
And it is a nightmare.
Yeah. How long's Renfest been there?
Oh, probably 30 years anyhow.
Yeah. All right. It's sort of like the people over on Kent Island and the Eastern Shore. They always bitch about the traffic. And I'm like, but you moved there after the Bay Bridges were built. So, but I mean, Crownsville, that was just dropped on him.
Yeah, it's like the guy that moves next to a railroad track and complains about the noise. It's to a point. But there was a guy when Nitro Circus was coming into the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. There was a guy that lives across the thing. He says, I don't need this damn noise. And I'm like, dude, you live across.
Well, there's a couple people who were over across there that had a problem with it.
I looked into his house records, and it's like, okay, dude, you moved here in like 93. So you've been here a long time. Sure. The stadium was built in the 50s.
Really? Okay.
And at the end of every quarter, they shoot a cannon. At the time, there's so much noise.
Nitro Circus was actually less loud than than Navy football games?
From a decibel level
Yeah.
outside of the stadium,
Yeah.
there was less noise from Nitro Circus than there is in a football game.
I missed. How was that? I didn't go to that.
It was fun. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Well, it was. I say it was horrible. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was great. It was a good crowd.
Was it
but they had a lot of
rainy
rain
that day?
delays.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And it was supposed to be a 3-hour thing. Started at 1 and ended up getting done at like at 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to complain no matter what you build, wherever you build it. When they did Quiet Waters, what was that, like the mid-'90s? And all the neighbors in Hillsmere were flipping the hell out.
Well, the question is, we need to do something with the Crownsville Hospital Center. I mean, it's an environment. There's asbestos up there, and something needs to be done. It just, the way this all went down is...
But it's not our problem as far as the county goes. That's owned by the state.
No, I understand. The state, the Department of Health owns it.
Right.
So, no, I understand that.
What does asbestos do? I always see, if you have asbestos or
It gets
mesothelioma...
you
Very sick, yes.
Lung cancer.
Yeah.
Does it? What is it? Just the fibers in it?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a chemical that's made in the asbestos.
Oh, I see those late night your people, the lawyer people, in the middle of the night for asbestos.
You'll never see me there doing that stuff.
Do you know my wife?
Yeah.
So when we lived in Albuquerque,
Yeah.
I've told this story a billion times, but you never heard it.
Was this before you moved in? Before you grew up in Montgomery County?
What?
Where's my bike?
We lived in New Mexico, and my wife handled cable sales like she does now. You know, and so her boss, so one of her clients there was Ron Bell. So you got to look up Ron Bell in Albuquerque.
Okay.
Now he was the billboard lawyer. He was, the DWI. I'm Ron Bell, and I'll get money for you, all that sort of thing.
Sure.
He was this little guy with like a handlebar mustache, and apparently he was driving from New York to L.A. His car broke down in the 70s in Albuquerque, and he never left. So that was her client. So she met with Ron Bell all the time. He's a real nice guy, really funny. He was the inspiration for Saul on Breaking Bad. That apparently they were what's his name? Vince Gilligan. He was Gilligan or whatever.
Yeah.
He was he was passing through and he saw Ron Bell, so he based the whole Saul thing after Ron Bell. So what you got to do is get a billboard.
No, I don't need to get a billboard.
You got to get that billboard where you're wearing your suit and that you have your arms crossed, and you got to get a partner so you go back to back.
That's the Jane Miller look from WVAL.
Jane Miller, okay.
Yeah, she's the investigative reporter, and it's funny. I've heard that anytime you do a group shot with all of the investigative reporters, Jane is the only one allowed to cross her arms. Everybody else has to.
Oh, really?
When I worked in TV, it was great because the promo people, we were the news people, like we were the production guys, and then you had the news people, and most of the reporters were reporters, but the anchors aren't reporters. The anchors, they're
talking heads.
They have like 5-hour dinners, and they come in. They're really good at reading stuff they've never seen before, whatever you put in front of them. So they'd show up for the 10 o'clock because we had the 10 o'clock, so the 11 out there. But for a couple hours in between the 6 and the 10. They would go into the studio with the promotion people, and there would be like 2 hours of like the male anchor and the female anchor standing like back to back, and then crossing their arms and leaning up against each other. And they would do that for an hour, and that was because those were the promos.
I think you all should have a promo like that. Who's crossing their arms?
We don't do video.
You? Yeah. Why not? You should.
Did you see us?
Yeah.
We're on podcast for a reason, my friends.
Yeah.
That's true. We got the voice.
Oh,
we got the looks for radio.
Yeah, looks for radio. Oh,
Not even.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break and refill on the beers, get a slice of pizza, and then we'll be back again with our very special guest.
Very special.
Very few things in life are so precious and so irreplaceable that we all must do our part to protect them. The Chesapeake Bay is one of those things. You can do your part by contributing to the Chesapeake Bay and Endangered Species Fund. It's that little line item you'll see at the very end of your Maryland tax return. Any amount you give makes a difference, and it's tax deductible. I'm Peter Francho, Maryland Comptroller. Our bay and rivers thank you. Learn more about the Chesapeake Bay Trust at cbtrust.org.
Buying a home is a big accomplishment, and we enjoy being part of that, especially for first-timers. The excitement of being approved and knowing they were building their future in their new home. All over the county, you will find homeowners who received the funds they needed from us. I'm Alan Hyatt, chairman of Severn Bank, and I tell you nothing means more to our bank or me than helping home buyers. Last week, I drove by a house and saw kids playing in the front yard. I recall how excited their parents were when they found out that the home was going to be theirs. So if it's a home, an addition, or a renovation, see us at Severn. You'll find affordable home loans, great service, a commitment to our community, and an enthusiastic team to help you. Severn Bank, here with you.
Online at severnbank.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. All loans subject to credit approval. Severn Bank is a trade name used by Severn Savings Bank.
And we are back with a very special guest, Scott MacMullan. He's lubricated with on his second Seawolf Brewery. Was it Special Hops? I went to Scott Brothers.
Special Hops?
Well, I knew Scott Brothers had their tasting of this a couple weeks ago, and I went in today to get it, and it was the very last 6-pack they had.
I always feel bad for the wine ladies who are standing there when you come in, because I'm not a wine drinker, and it's like them alone on a Friday night at a little table.
Aw.
Yeah, it's like,
wine? No. Looking for some Mad Dog or some.
So, to be clear, Liz Murphy, Naptown Pint, likes this beer.
Yes, she does.
Okay, good.
She said it was very good. We'll wait and see how the rest of it plays out with Seawolf. I mean, they're supposed to be opening up a restaurant downtown.
Are you allowed to guess where it's going to be? Or?
I can guess all I want. They won't tell me. I think it's O'Brien's.
Think it's O'Brien's? Okay.
Is it really?
I think so.
I'm going to say I think so too.
You think O'Brien's going to close?
That's
I think it's going to change.
Yeah, it's a little sad. I've heard the same thing.
No, it's not. What's going to happen with
Eptide? What's going to happen?
Yeah, what's going to happen with Eptide? Yeah, that's my question. So
we're going to open a bar.
That is like
what kind of bar?
Or a couple
What's
guys.
your dream bar? What would be your dream bar?
I like a dive like Eptide. That's my kind of.
So just be the same thing.
Yeah, well, I would clean it up somewhat. You know, I mean, part of the thing is that it's a little threadbare and everything.
No, I had a low when they closed. They closed for 2 months because they were renovating and doing everything.
That was funny.
It was, and they came back in and we're all like,
"What happened?"
And apparently, what they did was they were looking around. They used to have behind the bar there was a full like bar height to ceiling divider where they stored liquor bottles, but they sort of cut it in half, so you can see across the way. It was like
I like Eptide because it's so inexpensive. It's so cheap. It's
what
close.
About Mexican Cafe? Bring that back.
I never liked it.
The
drinks are fine. But
I liked it there.
Did you?
It lost everything when it moved out to West Annapolis.
No, I agree.
Well, that's what happened to Wild Orchid too. Wild Orchid moved, and
that was. I mean, why on earth, when you've got a place that sells out every single night, why would you move? I mean, I know
because you cap out. I mean, think about this. Let's say you have like 100. Let's say you have 50 tables at X, and you have 2 turnovers a night. So it's 100 tables at X. Average ticket. That's the most you can make. You can never grow. Right now, Vin 909 that's there, I would say that they're making the most money they possibly can make. They can't increase their revenues at all.
I agree, but I mean, you can increase your prices. You can, and I know that the Wilders wanted to turn around.
Yeah, that's it.
Catering is where restaurants
and beat their catering. They wanted the larger kitchen there, but Jesus, who the hell builds a restaurant in the middle of a circle with no parking?
Well, they have parking. They have the garage.
Oh, the garage closes down like
it was
at 5
bad timing though, wasn't it? Didn't it open during the recession?
I'm sure there was a recession.
There was that, but also it wasn't the same. The menu was completely different.
What closed down though? Think about that circle there. There was the steakhouse. Was there.
What was that? I forgot about that.
It was two. The steakhouse was a couple.
Greystone.
Oh, I forget. Wasn't it the Annapolis Steakhouse?
No.
Well, there was the
Morton's was there.
Well, there was Morton's that was there. That was on the West End. There was a steakhouse in the Severn Bank building.
That was Greystone or something.
Yes, Greystone. There was
wrong with your dog? Jesus Christ.
Morton's, and then there was I think they changed it to the Annapolis. I think you're right. I think it was the Annapolis Steakhouse or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And then that was actually very good and didn't work out. Do you remember Governor's Grill?
Oh yeah, that was great.
Vaguely. Yeah.
That was a good place.
Huh.
Yeah, my ex-wife and I.
Remember it was Burger King?
No.
Yeah, I remember it was Burger King back in the day. I remember the old Market House, and I also remember going up Main Street, and there would be the Burger King on the left. You go in there, it was open all the time. I remember when Chicken Roost was open 24/7, and a lot of it stayed the same. What do you think of the new chicken with the new management? You think stuff has changed? I've heard from the employees that they're pretty happy.
I mean, it looks the same. I never go in.
Yeah. I mean, he said he wasn't going to change anything, and that was part of the deal that Ted wanted. I mean, he said this is working.
Sure.
So don't.
Sure.
And I mean, that's part of the. I'm hearing that McGarvey's is having some issues, and in service and customers and employees being happy. And again, I mean, that's just you've got a good deal. Don't mess with it.
I would never
much.
get into that business. I mean, everyone thinks they want to own a bar or a restaurant, and then I think if you the first time
I've got a good Harvey Blonder story about a bar and restaurant. When I was first looking to buy a business, I almost bought Reynolds Tavern, and it was owned by the National Historic Trust. The business was for sale for $600,000. The kitchen needed about another $300,000.
All right, money bags, nice.
To $400,000 to get up and ready to go. And Harvey told me 2 things. He said, first of all, that restaurant's never going to succeed. This is before West Street was bricked over. So the restaurant's never going to succeed. All you're going to do is get lunch from lawyers and judges and prisoners. He said, people come up Main Street, they hit the church, they turn around, and they go back down Main Street. Nothing else matters.
I've been here 20 years. I've never been to Treaty of Paris.
Treaty of Paris is good.
But I mean, that's what I mean. But he's right, because I've never done that.
Yeah, they go up to Main Street, round and down. And he said also, now let me give you the life of a restaurant owner. you finally get a night off, and you and your wife, I was married at the time, go into D.C., and you go see a show at the Kennedy Center. And it's the greatest show. And you take the limos, and you've got a hotel in D.C. You go back to the hotel room. I mean, you have the best sex you've ever had for all night long. You know, you're a hot, sweaty mess at 4 a.m, but oh so satisfied.
Oh, we're going to edit that.
And then your phone rings, and it's your opener who says, "Oh, I can't possibly come into work today because I've got a zit on my nose." You know, he said that's the life of a restaurant owner. But yeah, no, and he said then you got to worry about people stealing you blind.
Yeah, and I think bars are the same way. You have a bunch of guys, you have like 2 or 3 friends go, wouldn't it be awesome to own a bar? And it just never works out. I think you have to own, first of all, you have to own the building before you do anything. And I think that's the problem with Eptide. They don't own that building.
Do you ever hear the Buddy's Crab story about how Harvey bought it? It was Carol Henson of Carol Henson's son, the oldest African-American business, was friends, still is, good friends with Harvey Blonder. And Harvey was, young, like looking to kind of, buy some property. And I think that was one of his first properties. And Carol advised him. He said, hey, that would be a good property to buy. And I think it's been a profitable business. I'm not a huge fan of Buddy's. I think I've been there once in my entire life. I've lived here.
All locals have.
Yeah. You just once?
Yeah, just once.
I think I only went to that small little, there's a little bar up there. I had
right
one drink up there. And it's the best view of Annapolis. I think there's so many cool things that can be done up there.
Even if you look up at the window at the top and see all the neon light stuff,
I did a 4th of July, from the roof of the Buddies. It was great.
That's where that picture of the downtown Annapolis, 23, the flooded out after Isabel, that was taken from on top of Buddies there. I have that in my piano room.
There's somewhere, Jay Fleming keeps taking pictures above Harvest Wood Grill for New Year's and 4th of July.
Reardon's.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Harvest. It used to be Factors Row, and now it's Harvest Wood.
I can't keep up with it.
And Jay Fleming, the renowned young what do you call Waterman photographer. Yeah, he's really good. He actually his office is like right next to mine on Cathedral Street, and y'all should have him on. He's a really interesting. He actually had a cool story.
We try to avoid people that you've had.
Tangier. Well, you could do it. I mean, just I encourage you guys to.
That's why we didn't want to have you on, because you're on your own podcast all the time.
Exactly. But yeah, he'd be interesting. No, every podcast interview is different, though. Don't you think?
We do ours naked sometimes.
I mean, I would have loved to have had Ralph Crosby, but it's Scott did that.
You can have him again.
So we're going for Lou Hyatt.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'll see your Crosby and raise it to Hyatt.
Who do you want to get on? Who's like your dream interview?
That's a really good question.
I know. I'm very good at this.
Wow, you are very good at this. I have to think about it.
We tried to get.
I have to think about
it. So we had Kevin Plank was going to come on.
Yeah, I think Cal Ripken Jr. I think I always wanted to get Cal. You guys were trying to get Cal too. Are you? Is that official? You're going to get Cal, or
we're trying?
Yeah, we're trying.
We're trying.
We learned some tricks.
We were trying for Spacey, but no, not anymore.
I know. I love that Spacey on. I wanted to have him on. That would going to be a great one, because I heard he's a total dick, and I'm like, that would be a good interview. Yeah. But we had Kevin Plank from Under Armour, and they said, okay, he's coming on. And then it was like, I think 4 months out. Because we talked to him before Christmas, and they said he'll come on in May.
And then he opened his mouth at the White House, and
he didn't say anything that bad. He just said something. He's like, I think Trump's doing an okay job, and then he just got lit up for saying something like that. So then they called back like, he's gonna,
we're gonna bail out.
We're gonna bail out on everything. So so then I tried John Waters. So I've contacted his rep like 4 or 5 times, and each time she's like, well, he's in Europe or he's here, or why don't you try him here? So I'm still working on John Waters.
Which ones do well in popular? I think you went over like the downloads, but I know Chicken Roost. I mean, for me, the politicians don't always do great.
No, Ted Levitt was by far the best.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not a politician.
The second one was probably when we were just dissing on the restaurants.
You're a middle-aged guy.
Which I told you go with Annapolis Fork.
That was Lee and Kara.
Kara's great.
That was a huge episode for us. I mean, that's where John called me and goes, can you look at the numbers? And I'm like, that can't be right. Yeah. Is that a mistake?
I'm going to see Kara probably in an hour or so here.
She's cute.
Well, I saw her. We had dinner with her on Monday night. I guess it was at Ram's Head. They had a special dinner for their new menu, which was kind of fun.
How is it? How is the a very
Some of the stuff's good. Some of the stuff is really good. I'm writing a story on it, and I got some pictures and all the Instagram stuff. But she had a great idea for the podcast, and she said that what we should do is we should do a progressive drinking podcast where we start at a bar and we drink and we just talk to whoever happens to be there, and then we go to the next bar, we drink some more, and we talk to whoever happens to be there, and stitch it all together at the end and see how it goes.
Gavin's episodes were always big. Those numbers were always
good. Yeah, that's a strong one for me.
Well, we can thank Mike for that because he was the whole Ferris wheel, but
yeah, that helped you all.
But he was fun to talk to too.
It was his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Mayor Buckley. Oh yeah, it was his birthday yesterday. Happy to be on his transition team. We got some stuff due coming up here. I'm on this public safety, transportation, infrastructure.
You guys get lunch out of that?
We don't.
Is there a Republican on that train?
I'm not looking. I'm sure that I think there are. Yeah, it's pretty diverse group. It really is, and he has people that are pro development. I would say smart growth. That's all over the place.
Actually, Walter's on one of those teams.
Walter is okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is he registered Republican?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, and we've always said that this level, the citywide level, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't
It
matter.
does, in the meetings, it gravitates that way. Where you see it happen.
When it comes down to the elections, that's when it starts to.
Well, no, but in the meetings
partisan.
too, they almost even in the meetings, people could put on their R&D T-shirts.
Really? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you would see Fred and Mike all of a sudden they'd pair off, and you would never ask for layoffs if it was a Democrat, and the Democrats pair off.
Yeah.
Where let's go into a non-cycle election. They'll say no because it benefits us not to.
Well, what do you think now? It's just Fred now. What do you think? So it's the Democrats.
He'll
Mary
hold
Buckley.
out. It doesn't hurt him to hold out.
Yeah,
I mean, he's obviously he's got a Republican base in Ward 2, so I mean but you looked when Mike was there. I mean, anything that wasn't truly bipartisan or anything that was controversial, and it was like the Democrats were like no or yes, and then the two Republicans were.
Well, in the county council, I mean, you look at where people are voting. It's I think I'm throwing out percentages here. I've heard 85% of the time everyone's voting on the same.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're DRR or something. There's just a few issues where people differ. So whether or not you have your trees over the county road or something like that,
because
it's not really a political issue.
Because all the opinions that people have are based on the national discussion. They really are. They're on things that don't if people have their opinions about abortion, gun control, taxes, et cetera. Those are your national issues, and for some reason you identify with that. Even though your neighbor lives the exact same life you do, even though that they're a different party view. But then when it comes down to the votes, for some reason people reflexively will go to their teams. For no other reason than that's instinctively.
I blame that on the election system because way back when you walked into the voting booth and it was like R or D.
I always wondered if a parliamentary system wouldn't work better for us, where you build coalitions and stuff like that.
I don't know. I mean, it's
that's what
they do in Ireland. They do in Ireland. It's sort of majority. There's a lot of different parties.
So if you have 5, 6 different parties, then you have to build a coalition. So the Tories and the Conservatives and whatever, you have to build those fragile coalitions, and it forces people to compromise. Right now, we're looking at compromise in this country as a bad word. Neither side will compromise, except in the
look at the two recent shutdowns.
You're supposed to compromise, and I blame that on Newt Gingrich in '95. He says there is no more compromise. It's our way or the highway, and I blame him for this culture. But I mean, it's both sides that does it. Newt Gingrich. Yeah, he's a horrible human being.
I went to a really interesting lecture. This was many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and that's not many, but it was on gerrymandering.
You're an old man.
It was on gerrymandering and how gerrymandering really brings out the extremes in the parties. And what happens is you gerrymander and you have these extreme candidates, and then they get to the state circle or the capital, and they just conflict, and there's no compromise. But if you didn't have that, if you had sort of a rational system, you get to state circle or wherever, people will get along.
Well, you look at what's happening in Illinois right now. They have a Holocaust denier who's running for office, and the Republicans, of course, are appalled. I mean, because they're stuck with this candidate. They were stuck with Roy Moore. I would do the equivalency here just to be fair, but I can't think of anyone of that extreme ilk. I'm sure there are, but you're right. Is that once they insert themselves in the system, there's no way that the party that they're aligned with can get them out. And it reflects badly on them. And the gerrymandering thing, I think, Maryland, Pennsylvania is going through, I think, what's going to happen with Maryland next. But Pennsylvania, they have to redraw. They went to the Supreme Court, and now they have to redraw there.
Wasn't that just overthrown?
No, the appeal was.
Okay.
So the Republicans, they wanted to keep the gerrymandered system, which is nowhere near as bad as it is here, by the way. But they appealed it, and the appeal was...
Say the three guys that lived in the pterodactyl district.
Yeah. I was looking at that today. It was just crazy.
When our congressman has to get out GPS to figure out how to get to parts.
Yeah.
I don't know if this country wouldn't be better broken into 5 or 6 different countries anyway. I just think that maybe we're just too big.
I have no problem. California can be their own country.
They could be. I mean, they got the 5th largest economy in the world. I mean, they're
wow.
Yeah, that's the 5th one. But I'll tell you what, if they break the Northeast into its own country, and then we'll look at the people in the South who's so anti-immigrant, then we're going to have a problem with immigrants coming across our border. We'll keep Northern Virginia though. That's the cash cow.
What were you going to say? So you mentioned something about warrants and 287G. Because I was listening to Stuart Pittman's.
That was no segue.
I thought it was very...
No segue at all, right? We're just going to jump from topic to topic.
I've gone back and forth on that. Okay, when I left with Steve's show, and the part that
we're talking about the ICE thing.
I flipped on was not so much the housing of the ICE detainees. That's
what he was saying made sense though. Stuart Pittman, correct? Sorry,
yes, it does. But what Tim said to me also made sense. So I'm very conflicted on it. Steve Shoes said that what we're doing is with our existing prisoners that we have arrested for breaking a law in Anne Arundel County. Aside of an immigration law, we're not saying, okay, let me see your papers. You're here illegally. You're now arrested. It's Scott MacMullan. You have now, you beat up that woman. You come with me and you're going to jail because you beat up a woman. You have not gone to court yet. And this is where Stuart Pittman makes this point. But while I interact with you in prison, I'm sitting there going, okay, well, he's got that funny little accent. He talks about his mother at home, and home meaning El Salvador as opposed to Annapolis or whatever it may be.
The iHeart coming into the country illegally T-shirt.
Yeah. And then, you get released for whatever reason, whether it's on a bond or whether, but I turn around and I would say to ICE, hey, I think Scott might be here illegally. And the way County Executive Shue put it is that they could do whatever they want. Is he somebody we want to talk to? Is he somebody that we care about? Is he a big fish? Do we need to get him? Or whatever. And I thought that was reasonable. But when I talked to Stuart Pittman, this is where I get conflicted. He says that during the time that they're in jail, there is a good chance that they have not been tried and convicted of that original crime
or arraigned.
Absolutely. And
if they're serving
people
time,
to be picked up.
And again, and that makes sense to me as well. But you had said
there's an incentive there if human beings are commodities, and that's what we're really doing here because they're getting money. There's only 59 jurisdictions in America that have this program, counties or whatever, townships or whatever you want to call it. What you're saying by picking them up. And what ends up happening, or could happen, and this is what I'm concerned with, is you have potential for profiling that incentivize people to pick them up.
A correctional officer to profile.
Yes, exactly. Well, you're just saying.
Tim's point that he brought out before.
Yeah, let him talk about how I'm right.
What is the difference if you have a bench warrant? Okay, you have broken a law at some point, and somebody has said you've done bad, and they stop you for beating up a woman or something like that. They look up and they say, hey, okay, we're arresting you now for that. But you still have this bench warrant. I see that as well.
But bench warrant, just because you have a warrant doesn't mean you're a criminal.
Yeah, but it means
that they can hold you.
Well, they can hold you without you being a criminal,
but when they contact the sheriff's office at that point and say, hey, we see there's a warrant out for his arrest. We happen to pick this guy up. Now do you want to come and get him?
But there's also that, and that goes to priorities and warrants. Some warrants are more priorities. Like if I have, I missed the court date because of a speeding ticket or something like that. The sheriffs aren't, prioritizing that. But they could potentially, we don't know. Oh, it's a speeding ticket. This person has a speeding ticket. He missed court or something like that. Had to go to work or something like that, and they missed court. And now they're being picked up by the sheriff. But and then the sheriff might be prioritized to actually go and pick them up. Depending. So I just think it encourages profiling.
So your point is it being weaponized? And the answer to that is probably yes. Of course, I think that's appalling. I do. But that's happening now. If you say, arrested for driving while black, if you had a taillight out or you didn't come to a complete stop, that's happening now.
Do you remember in Pennsylvania there's the judges that was sending juveniles to private detention centers?
Right. Yep. That's why I'm against private prisons.
So there's making money per person that's arrested. So it's a little similar.
Explain the whole what he was doing too.
I don't know the background. He was getting paid. He was getting paid to do it.
There was a private prison, or was a private jail in Pennsylvania, juvenile detention.
Kickbacks. Yeah.
And so these prisons and these facilities want to do. They have a contract for the number of beds that they filled. So what this judge was doing, and he did do it because he was convicted, is that he was getting kickbacks from the prison for sending these boys to that specific prison, and he was convicting these kids who hadn't done anything, or who were doing things that weren't certainly not warranted a jail stay.
Sure, and I have all the respect for the correctional officers that you were just mentioning, but that incentive, that tension will be there if this is the case.
It's a complicated issue, and I'm admittedly conflicted on that personally.
Sure.
I don't.
Okay.
I'm conflicted on the whole thing. First of all, again, we are not in an immigration crisis. I mean, that is something that's being bandied around. We're not in an immigration crisis because we're at net zero immigration. More people are leaving the country than they're coming in. So, and the people who are here, for the most part, although they'll find like the occasional heinous crime committed by an undocumented immigrant, they'll find something, but it's anomalous when it happens. I think the vast majority of people give them a path to citizenship. That even the Republicans want that,
and we're also sort of on uncharted territory as well. I mean, this is something new, trying to figure this out.
You mean Donald Trump as president?
Yeah. Any number of things that are that. It's strange, and I don't know how it is. I mean, I want to look into that. I want to convince my way which way I would want to do that. I am registered as a Republican, but I consistently.
That's your first time you've said that.
No, I've said that a couple times, but it's but I consistently.
I'm independent.
Jared's accused me of that.
Unaffiliated, but yes.
Jared called me out on that too. He says you're Republican. This comes out a lot, which is fine. But
as for me, it pox on both your houses.
Things. I mean, I tend to be liberal on social issues and conservative on fiscal issues.
The Republicans are not conservative on fiscal issues.
No.
They are absolutely. I think we just proved that.
I misspoke there, but I think that. I always split my vote. I mean, I really do. I mean, I know going back to the judges. I don't believe in slates.
No.
And,
I think
do I think Claudia Barber was the most qualified judge to be there? No, I don't. But she got my vote.
John, you're my friend. My parents are Republicans too. I mean, it doesn't. Just see things.
Were you always
different.
a Democrat?
When I was 18. Probably from 18 to 23 or 20, I was registered the other way. I was.
Yeah.
Just because I was sort of, I came up in a Republican.
You heard it there first. Scott swings both ways.
No, I'm much older now, and I really didn't get into politics until 4 or 5 years ago. I was actually door knocked with my friend Eric Barron, who's a delegate now for district, I believe it's 24 in Prince George's County, and I knew him through the bar association, state bar association, and I door knocked with him and helped him out, and that was kind of my first foray into politics. And in law school with studying climate change in Chesapeake Bay. That's when I started to really, embrace the Democratic Party.
Looking into your campaign, and we didn't actually. It's turned a lot into a campaign type of a podcast, which is cool. We didn't really intend to. What are your 3 main issues on your campaign, or 4 main issues, or 5 main issues,
4 or 5 main issues,
or whatever?
Well, the big one.
I don't want you to explain. Just tell me what they are.
Environment. Education and public safety. I mean, that's anytime. Public safety is always going to be quality of life. When you talk about Annapolis District 6 is it's a complex district when you look at other county districts because you have the city within it, and then you have rural areas. So it's kind of, I think of it as almost a microcosm of the country when you have the urban area and you also have the rural area. In some ways, you're smiling.
Well, no, it's funny. Everyone says Maryland is a microcosm of the country.
Yeah.
Now the county. The county is a thing there.
But
well, it's a tricky one because we always said that everyone thinks that they're unique, but we truly are because we have the county, which is divided in half by the city. So I live separated from the rest of the county by the city of Annapolis, so we're kind of a colony, just kind of an outpost here.
And I was listening. I mean, as far as public employees and teachers, I think they need to be paid reliably and consistently. When it comes to
would you vote for the increase in the county council salary? If you had a vote on council right now?
That's a good question.
What's the salary?
I'll be honest.
It's like 37. They want to bring it up to like 41 or 44.
It passed. Why not? I think
it did pass, but would you have voted for that?
I mean, that's a tough...
Because there's somebody that's running, I can't remember who it is that's running from another, not your competitor, but another district.
Was it Jerry Walker?
Nah, it may have... No, it was. It was Dirk Hare's wife. Who's running for Jerry's seat and was saying, I would absolutely not do that. And I said, I said,
I don't know. It's a lot of work.
It is. I was just talking to someone about this, and I was you remember I was on the City Compensation Review Commission, and it was, their salaries were $12,500, and we recommended to raise it to $15,000. And to me, I have my own business. I don't like it. I mean, government should be a service, but you definitely get more of an opportunity when there's a little bit more salary, so more people actually run. You don't want it to just be retirees. But when you get to the county council level, when you're talking 35, 40, that's a little bit more dough.
My point was, I said that the dollar amount is going to be $25,000 a year max. So it's a drop in the bucket.
Sure.
And I said, these guys,
it shouldn't be enough to live off of.
Well, their argument was like, oh, it's just a part-time job. Well, it is a part-time job, but it's not really. I mean, you sit there and you look at what Jared was doing for the city. I mean, it might be a part-time job to attend the meetings and the committee meetings that you need to do, where you need to be there as a county councilman. But what about when you get that constituent call at 9 o'clock at night and you spend an hour there? What about the emails that you're answering between your law cases or whatever it may be? And I said, honestly, I said they work hard.
And there's also a big expectation. Everyone wants you to kind of help out with their different programs, whether it's charity charity or something like that, there's people reaching out, hey, can you host this event for a really good cause? And so there is kind of an underlying expectation for you to get involved through charity purposes too. So I think that's important to point out. And also, you look at other jurisdictions, we were behind in that too. When it comes to the environment, I think we need to continue to encourage stormwater restoration projects. I think that's a really big deal. The biggest pressing issue is the general development plan. I think it needs to be transparent. We need to be upfront with it, and we need to have teeth with it. And I'm actually calling for a GDP compliance officer potentially, or some sort of checklist, and activist groups to actually check on the planning and zoning office. Because right now, I think the planning and zoning office, with their modifications, it's flipped. There's so many modifications that are being approved by it that there's actually, it's like kind of what's the purpose of having a code. So I think we need to have some more oversight with the planning and zoning office, and also our environmental violations in this county. The South River Keeper, Jesse Iliff, and the Federation did a study in 2014-2015. Only about 5 to 10% of actual environmental violations were being enforced in the county. We need to make sure we're enforcing those violations, but right now the money and the fines that are coming from those violations are going to a general fund. I think that needs to go to back to the environment. So that's those are some of the big things. The opioid issue is a huge issue.
County is doing a great job.
Stay in the state.
I think we need to invest in long-term care treatment. I'm on the Anne Arundel Medical Center Building Traditions Society, and we had our annual meeting a couple nights ago, and they're actually looking to do a campaign to increase pathways, increase beds there, as well as do a mental health hospital that's connected to. I think it's really. I think that's going to be a really big initiative for the county. We need to really think long-term treatment when it comes to that. We need to fund our police officers to make sure first responders. We have enough first responders. So those are my issues.
Rattled them off. Look at that.
You questioned me. I got
look
them.
at that. You just
where do we find out? Where do we go? A very special guest.com.
Yeah.
And
it's elect Scott.
That's actually we should probably get that. A very special
before he does. Yeah. Register that while he's driving home.
electscottmac.com.
MAC.
MAC. Yeah. I'm a Scottish guy named Scott.
I'm an Irish guy.
So it's all right. Well, Scotland owned Ireland.
We're much taller.
For a little bit. Yeah, you are. You're much taller than me and fitter than me. Exactly. I tell you, it's Maryland Dad's podcast, not Maryland Crab.
I will say you're like one of my favorite lawyers.
Okay.
And I have a disdain for lawyers for the most part, but
that sounds about right.
And a great podcast. So go visit and subscribe to the Maryland, to the Annapolis podcast. And you want to go give them reviews and stars and everything that you would do with us too, but that helps all of us out a lot. Annapolis Pintcast, more power to you. These are all the local podcasts that you want to support, we want to support. So give them stars and reviews.
I know Scott's a fan of Red Maryland, I'm sure.
No.
They do good work. I mean, I don't agree with anything they say.
Is it well produced?
It's very well produced. They do a great job with it. Yeah. I think they're consistent, put out a lot of content.
Who's the third best podcast in Maryland? That's a good question.
Ooh. Third best in Maryland?
Let's see. There's a minor report up in Hagerstown.
Report's pretty good. I'll tell you. I think it's the best podcast in Maryland as far as production, guests, and everything else.
Maryland Crabs. Yeah.
Maryland Crabs podcast.
No, I will do that. I'll do Soul Force Politic, Ms. Maryland with Heather.
It is really. When are you going to have her on?
Well, we were going to.
We got to figure out get our schedules together.
It'll be fun. She's over in Eastern Shore.
Yeah,
she's really nice. She's a very dynamic speaker.
She is.
Yeah.
She is. She's great, and we do.
She's
need
very
to do
reasonable. She's very complimentary to our governor about fracking, and she's definitely the type of person that will reach across the aisle, and she's very reasonable. She'd be an interesting guest.
And I'm jealous because she's friends with Melissa Etheridge, and Melissa Etheridge gave her permission to use her song for the thing. And
that's my question. When are you all going to redo your branding?
I want to do that.
I don't know.
That's on the list.
It's work.
Yeah. You're going to eat the rest of my
Jared
Roccos?
Hates it.
After this, you gonna eat Roccos?
No, take that out. I gotta call my kids and see what they want for dinner.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it. Get in touch with us at info@themarylandcrabs.com. You can go to our website, themarylandcrabs.com, at MD Crabs Podcast, which would be our Twitter thing. You've got Facebook, the Maryland Crabs podcast.
Group and a page.
Group and a page.
Yeah, on both those.
Always interested in guests that you may want to suggest.
And
topics.
while we were sitting here in the break, I was looking at a few messages that we got through Facebook of people who are running for this or that, and they want to be on the podcast. So we're going to we're going to reach out to those people and get them on. And if you're running for anything, just let us know. We'll get you on.
Yep, we will. And
thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott, before you leave,
he can never end a freaking podcast. Every time we're going to end it, he just can't do it.
All right, this is the end, but this is going to be the PS. Your mayor for the day. What do you do?
Redo Market House and get some nice food in there.
And there you go.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, okay. Thanks for the pizza.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them in all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You still here? It's over. Go home. Go.